This is the 300th Sweaty Thoughts video. This is exciting. This is invigorating.
This is Sparta!
Well, no, it's not quite that, but it's pretty damn satisfying. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. When I started this YouTube channel, I knew that I would be making literally hundreds of videos, but it's one thing to intend to do something, to look forward to doing something, to plan on doing that thing. It is another thing entirely to actually execute and complete that plan. Now, I'm a long ways away from completion. I'm barely halfway through the episodes, and I've got a long way to go. But 300 videos in, I have proved consistency and endurance, and I am just pleased as punch. Plus, I've gotten to watch a heck of a lot of Doctor Who, and that's always a good thing in my book. Now, you might be wondering why this episode is covering 4 parts instead of the usual 2. That's because I filmed yesterday and the video didn't turn out well. There were framing problems and other, whatever. You'd think 300 videos of experience I'd have this sorted out, but swapping out the elliptical for the treadmill has really messed things up, and I hate the elliptical. I can't wait for it to die. As soon as my new treadmill arrives, that elliptical is gone. I will never be on it again. But that is several weeks away at best, and I will make do as I can. As far as Earthshock itself, this one is rightfully considered the crown jewel of this season of Doctor Who. It is routinely picked as the best one of the season, and deservedly so. It features the surprise return of the Cybermen after 8 years of absence. Bearing in mind that the Cybermen were primarily a second Doctor foe. Yes, their first appearance was with the first Doctor. It was literally his regeneration story into the second Doctor. The second Doctor was born from the Cybermen. He fought the Cybermen multiple times during his tenure, and then they went away. Cybermen did not appear at all during the Third Doctor era, and only appeared once very early on in the Tom Baker era. And that story, Revenge of the Cybermen, although I think of it very fondly, is broadly considered one of the weakest Cybermen story of all time. I think it holds a higher opinion for me because it was my first encounter with the Cybermen, and it was in book form. It was one of those magical first Pinnacle paperbacks that I purchased way back when I first discovered Doctor Who. And so I first encountered that story by reading it and not seeing it, and thus, when I saw it, so much of what I took in was enhanced by what I knew from the book, and it all merged into one thing. But that's a lot of talking about not the story at hand. Earthshock. Earthshock is remarkable for having a story that is, again, written by Eric Sayward, the incoming script editor of the show, whose scripts were so strong they invited him in to become the script editor, and this one shows exactly why. It starts out on Earth, then the story propels into deep space, and then takes a rapidly accelerating path directly back to Earth, and quite literally an extinction level event. It's beautifully paced. There's a good reason this was chosen a few years ago as the story to be the exemplary Fifth Doctor story, although I personally would not have picked this one. I would have picked Caves of Androzani, but that's, quibbles. But the Cybermen in this story are strong and cunning and imposing and relentless and just beautifully well done. And they also use the same technique that James Cameron used in the movie Aliens, which is that there are only ever at most 6 Cybermen on screen at one moment, and yet it feels like there is an army of Cybermen, and it's all done through camera trickery and rapidly changing scenes and composition, and it's a great example of how to use economy to build drama. And as for the ending, the ending. Today, worthy of my 300th video, today I am quit of Adric forever. Adric, in the end, died the same way he lived, stupidly and pointlessly. He stayed behind on the ship to try and defeat security locks, to stop the crash and prevent the destruction of Earth. And instead, he just rides the freighter into its impact with Earth and destroys the dinosaurs. He literally could have left the ship with all of the other people and survived, and nothing would have changed except his stupidity would not have killed himself. Oh, I loathe the character of Adric. And to be clear, I love Matthew Waterhouse. He is a great dude. He may have been kind of a shit when he was a teenager, but so was I. I can't fault him for that. He has been a great advocate for the show, and he is by all accounts a very nice guy, a stand-up dude. I would love to meet him someday, get him to sign my poster. But the fact remains that Adric was a little shit who deserved to die, and I am so happy that he's gone forever. I once remember seeing a cut of the closing credits of this story, which, bear in mind that this story features the only silent closing credits that I'm aware of, and it features scrolling credits for the first time since, I think, The Gunfighters. It's a really unique closing credits that's there to really deepen the impact of Adric's death. And I once saw an edit of this at a convention decades ago where someone had overdubbed a laugh track over the rolling closing credits over Adric's death, and that about sums it up for me. I considered doing an edit for this today with either the theme from Seinfeld or the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme, or maybe Kool and the Gang, Celebrate Good Times. I am so happy to be done with Adric. Now, one interesting thing about his departure, by the way, Earthshock is unique in the classic era for being one of the few stories that was actually conscious of not leaking story details in advance. These days, productions have to go to great lengths to hide those kind of things, but it was pretty rare back in the 80s for producers to even think of it. But this story was specifically written. The only exterior shooting sequence was the opening sequence at a rock quarry, which, of course, the only outside film sequence in a Doctor Who story would be shot in a rock quarry. But specifically, that filming did not feature any Cybermen. All of the shots with the Cybermen were done on set in the studio, and the studio was blacked out from all other people during the filming so that the reveal of the enemies would be a genuine surprise, to the point where the Radio Times listings, instead of giving credit to the actor playing the cyber leader and the cyber lieutenant, they were simply given credit for playing the leader and the lieutenant. So the surprising appearance of the Cybermen at the end of the first episode, stolen from the Daleks, was actually genuinely a surprise for viewers. And regarding Adric, John Nathan Turner pulled that same trick again. Although Adric is dead, he will appear very briefly in the next story in essentially a dream sequence, and quite literally the only reason that Adric appears in that story is so that Matthew Waterhouse would be listed in the Radio Times listing for the following week's Doctor Who, so that there was no suspicion that he actually died in this story. So good on JNT for pulling off that hat trick. It was well done, and one of the defining moments of classic Doctor Who. And on that note, I am going to go celebrate the death of Adric, celebrate my 300 videos on the time treadmill, which isn't a treadmill anymore, but will be again soon. And I will see you tomorrow for the stupid Concorde story. What a letdown. I'll see you tomorrow.